Most people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s get stuck at making just enough money to get by and building systems that's going to help them build financial wealth for the future. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about money moves that you do not want to ignore to help you build financial wealth. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, desire to dream. What do you mean? Take a good look at my life. Yeah, my future it gleams. Desire to dream. What do you mean? I cannot lose, cause I got God on my team.
What's going on to my dreamers, believers, and high achievers? I'm your boy, Lo Wilder. You're listening to another episode of Desire to Dream podcast, where we turn your purpose into power and we turn your dream into a reality. Look, I'm excited about today's podcast episode because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's money. But first, I just wanted to take a moment to just talk about the tragic incident that took place with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I know that he was married. He had a young family with two beautiful children. And it's just a sad, tragic event that took place. Look, I don't really, think it matters what you believe in, what you say. Nobody should get assassinated for their beliefs and for what they believe in. So, I just think that that's just a tragic incident. And I just wanted to share that moment because I am paying attention to some of the current events, and that's just a very tragic event. The other thing is, here in Brevard County, Florida, I'm seeing a lot of people, dying on 95, and I just wanted to pray for all my people that are, traveling over the road, whether you're commuting to work. I got several of my real good friends, man. They're like brothers to me, Ralph and Jeff, man. You guys know who you are. These guys are truck drivers, CDL drivers, and they're constantly on the road. So I just want to pray for your traveling mercies so that you can get home the same way that you left. All right. So listen, you're listening to Desire to Dream podcast, and we're going to be talking about finances. One of my favorite quotes that I heard from Les Brown was that you have to be willing to do the things today that others won't do in order to have the things tomorrow others won't have. And what I'm talking about today is money. What I'm talking about is finances. What I'm talking about is wealth. A lot of people like to talk about generational wealth and what that looks like. I come from a background of poverty. I'm talking about food stamps, talking about Section 8 housing. For those that know, that's public housing. I lived in projects. I lived in buildings. I lived in apartments. I never lived in a home like that was ours. My mother, was taken away when I was 14 years old. She served many years in prison. She served about 4 years in prison. My father was in prison. And I grew up moving on, sleeping on people's couches. And one of the things that we never really talked about was money. Let's be honest. It's a conversation that most people do not enjoy having, especially in the Black and brown community. When you're talking about money, it's like, man, I don't even want you to be all up in my business like that, But this podcast episode, I'm going to be sharing some money moves that's going to help you really start looking at money, finances from a different perspective. And hopefully there's going to be some key takeaways that you can take and apply it to your life so you can start creating generational wealth. Whether you're in your 20s, whether you're in your 30s, or in your 40s or your 50s, there's going to be some things that I'm going to be talking about and sharing with you all today that I know will benefit you. So let's get right into it. I want to talk about 5 financial pillars that you cannot ignore. And the first one is going to be about cash flow. What is coming in and out? And I'm not talking about just budgeting your money. I'm talking about being intentional and having awareness of what is coming in and what is coming out. Now, most people know what's coming in because for most of us, we're working at a job where it's normally salary or you're getting paid a certain amount of money per hour, working 40 hours a week. And so you already know what you're going to get paid. Got a lot of friends that get paid every week. Got some friends that get paid every 2 weeks. And obviously you have your entrepreneurs who only eat what they kill. And so if you ain't killed nothing in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you ain't getting no money. That's just how it is. It ain't for the weak. It's definitely not for the weak. But if you're someone that is getting paid weekly, bi-weekly, you already know what's coming in. But I guarantee you that most of you, where you kind of slip up on is you don't know what's going out. You're not truly paying attention to what's going out. And I know this because we have moved into a life or where it's normal to just have automatic bill payments. Like, let's be honest, how many of you don't even know what bills are coming out of your monthly statements? They're just automatic payments. Like, you don't even know that you're paying for Netflix you have 2-3 different Netflix accounts. You have 2-3 YouTube accounts. You're paying things twice, 3 times because you're not paying attention. And best believe there's many times when I look at my accounts and I notice that there's some type of invoice, there's some type of payment that occurred in error. And so I make the phone call to that institution and let them know, hey, listen, I think you made a mistake. And I have saved hundreds of dollars. My wife and I sat down, years ago, and we looked at some of our bills, and we went and called some of these places and we said, hey, listen, I would like to negotiate. I would like to have a conversation of how I can decrease this payment, whether it's insurance, whether it's, phone bills, things like that. And we was able to save hundreds of dollars monthly. Over the course of years, it's thousands of dollars. And so what's going out is very important. And I know a lot of you, I'm not talking about budgeting your money, I'm not buying Starbucks coffee because it costs $7. Listen, I know a lot of millionaires, and I'm telling you right now, they never told me, I became a millionaire because I stopped drinking Starbucks coffee when I was 25 years old. Never in my lifetime have I heard anyone say that. Most of the time, it's not that you have a spending problem, it's that you have an income problem. So you might want to look at, maybe there's a way you can shift jobs. I know a lot of people like being in their comfort zone, but if you're listening to this podcast, I'm all about getting out of your comfort zone, because when you get out of your comfort zone, that's where true growth takes place. So maybe you can find a job, same job that your title that you're doing, maybe a different company is paying a little bit more money. Maybe you can get a side hustle where you can make a little bit more money. We are in 2025 where people are making so much money, right? And it's passive. It's passive income. And I'm going to have a podcast episode that talks about passive income. One of the key things to passive income is obviously real estate. I know a lot of gurus out there that are talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, stocks. My brother-in-law, he does day trading. And so there's a lot of people that I want to bring on this podcast to talk about money. I'm not a financial advisor, but I just want you to know that your cash flow is one of the biggest pillars that you cannot ignore. The second financial pillar that you cannot ignore is your credit. And I'm not just talking about your credit score. Listen, I'm a mortgage loan officer. And so one of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis when I'm taking applications and talking with my clients is we're talking about the credit score. It's a very important part of the home buying process. But the truth of the matter is, credit isn't just about your score. It isn't just about the identity of how you spend your money. But credit is extremely important when you're talking about loans, when you're talking about leveraging your credit so that you can build wealth. See, most people don't understand that America is one of the most wealthiest countries in the world, but it also holds the most biggest debt in the world as well. But how America leverages their debt is how we're able to be one of the most wealthiest countries in the world. Leveraging credit is important, but understanding the power of credit. I was talking with some clients, weeks ago. We were talking about how you can leverage your credit so that you can get benefits, rewards. There are certain things that you can get because of your credit. Now, when I was in high school, man, I had a football coach. He was like a father figure, but he was young enough to be like my big bro. And shout out to Coach Watson. But, Watson, I told him, I'm 39 years old now. This is 25 years ago. And I remember us having a conversation about credit cards. And this is back in the 90s where, early 90s, where they used to send you the credit card. Like the credit card, you was already approved. It wasn't about pre-approval, apply here. It was literally like activate this card and you can start spending it. And he told us, don't get any credit cards. Don't get no credit. Don't get no debt. I made a big mistake when I was in college and I listened to him. And I never got a credit card until I was 24 years old. And I walked into a car dealership because I wanted to purchase a decent car, graduated from college, wanted to get me a nice vehicle. I wasn't trying to buy nothing crazy. Salesman came up to me and was like, sorry, bud, you're not approved. You don't have any credit. And I was like, that's right. I don't have any credit, but I'm trying to establish credit. And he was like, that's the thing. Having bad credit is actually worse than having no credit. And that was a moment that I realized that financial advice that I was given, my coach did a great job of keeping me away from racking up debt when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, but I didn't understand the power in leveraging my credit card so that I can build credit. So if you're in your 20s, the biggest thing you want to do in your 20s right now is to build your credit. Even if you're in your 30s, building your credit and leveraging your credit is going to help you generate wealth later down the road. The third financial pillar that you can't ignore is protection. I'm talking about building a will, a trust fund, talking about life insurance, right? Like there's car insurance that's forced on us. If you're a homeowner, there's homeowners insurance that, lenders force you to have on your home because they want to protect their asset, because technically the mortgage company owns your home. You're just making payments until you can get the deed of your home. So they want to put insurance in case of a hurricane, in case of a fire. It protects their asset. But one of the things that the Black and brown community, we absolutely ignore is life insurance. And again, I understand having these type of conversations in our families are things that we're not privy to. We're not really accustomed to having these conversations. They're very uncomfortable conversations, but they're crucial conversations. And honestly, it can set families back generations. We understand that certain cultures understand the power in trust, understand the power of writing wills, knowing the difference between a trust fund and a will, knowing the difference between life insurance and having money saved up in the bank, knowing the difference between different life insurance policies, right? When I worked for my company, a Fortune 200 company, they provided life insurance plan for my life. In case of an emergency, I know I would get 2.5 times my salary will be paid out to my family. But guess what? After leaving that job for 12 years, I left that life insurance plan because I only would get that if I was still employed with that organization. But when I leave, that plan is gone. So if you're working for an organization and God forbid something was to happen, whether the company went under or you decided to walk away or they decided to let you go, that life insurance policy leaves with you. One of the things that I want to also mention in protection is emergency fund. Look, I understand that most of you do not understand what that means. Emergency fund isn't just your savings account. Emergency fund is exactly that. In case of an emergency, in case something was to happen, do you have enough finances to get you to pay your bills on time, to be able to provide, to feed your family, to keep the lights on in a certain amount of time? The minimum that I recommend to all my mentees, the minimum that I recommend to all my friends, the minimum that I recommend to all my clients is having at least 3 months of an emergency fund. And I'm not just talking about your bills, making sure that your house is paid, your rent, your mortgage is paid, your car is paid, but I'm talking about even that favorite restaurant that you enjoy eating on Fridays, making sure you have enough money that you can still enjoy that food in case of an emergency in 3 months, so you're not living all scared and freaked out. But if you really want to step your game up, 6 months is where you truly want to be. And 12 months, that's where you're really doing what you have to do. You have 12 months emergency fund in case anything happens. Like when I was working for my company for 12 years and they said, Lo, we're not paying you the 6-figure bonus check because we're changing our bonus check policy. That's right. I'm talking about a 6-figure bonus check that I was expecting, that the company switched up the policy, talked with the attorneys, wrote up a whole different bonus structure, like, and said, "Lo, we're not paying it. We're paying you a fraction of that." I walked away. I walked away from a 12-year employment because they decided to take away a 6-figure bonus check from me. But I was able to do that because at that time, my wife was 8-9 months pregnant. My wife wasn't working during the COVID times. She spent, 3 years being a home mom. And I had to make sure that we had enough funds to have in our bank account so that I can walk away and not feel anything. We were still eating at Papa Do's. We were still eating shrimp. We were still ordering steak because we had the funds there. And then the most important thing is that once that emergency occurs, and you get back on your feet, you want to make sure you replenish that emergency fund. It's really important. Now, here's one thing I want you to know that you need to take away from this. An emergency fund is not when you have to buy new tires. An emergency fund is not when your car breaks down. That isn't emergency. That is something that you must expect to happen. A vehicle is a machine, and machines break down. Tires get worn down over the course of a year, 2 years, especially if you're on the road commuting. So why are you not planning and budgeting to replace those instead of pulling from your emergency fund? Your car breaks down, it is not an emergency. An emergency is an emergency. If someone gets sick, do you have the funds? You want to have a bucket for your emergency fund. Very important. I might just do a podcast just on that because I'm telling y'all, it's a game changer. When you have that security blanket, you feel that you're protected and you feel great. So it's a pillar that you cannot ignore. The fourth pillar that's extremely important that you cannot ignore, you cannot afford, is your assets. I'm talking about being a homeowner. Being a homeowner is very important. Many people say, well, Lo, I like the fact that I can rent because if anything happens, I don't have to worry about that. But I work with clients. I do home mortgages. I work with clients all the time, and I break down the scenario to them and explain it just like this. Let's say your rent is $2,000. You're paying $24,000. And in the course of 5 years, you would give your landlord $120,000. Over the course of 10 years, you would give him $240,000. You cannot afford to pay rent, even if you're only living in the home for 3 years and you decide to sell it, because your home equity will increase over the time. And it is, even though the market goes up and down, we have seen time and time again that homes have always increased in value over the course of years. So your home equity is very important. Now let's bring another scenario. Let's say you purchase a home and you're over 62 years old. And you don't have any money saved up, but your house is paid off. Now you have equity in the home that you can take out. Let's say you're 45 years old and you've been living in that home for 12, 15 years. You have equity in that home, and being able to pull from that equity to be able to help your kids for college, or if you have to do something because you had some type of medical emergency and you needed a large amount of money. Well, having a home equity definitely helps you. And it's a financial pillar that's is so important that you have that. The other thing is stocks, retirement funds, being able to invest in the markets where we have compounding interest. Now, I am not a financial advisor, but I advise you in this, is that the power of compounding interest is something that you cannot afford to be in. Compounding effect takes place when you put up money, even if it's a little bit of money, you rack up and you start saving up $10,000. And over the course of 7 years, and it multiplies to $20,000. And then you have $40,000, and then $80,000, and then $160,000, because the compound effect, the compounding interest over the course of decades, it just happens. I was working for Walgreens when I was 17 years old, and that was the first time that I started getting involved in retirement fund with Walgreens. They were matching $3. And my manager told me, he's like, Loren, you do not want to miss out on the company. It is free money. It's $3. put that money up, and I promise you over the course of years, it's going to continue to add up. And I left Walgreens, and you're able to move that money into the next company and so on and so forth. So please, 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 please get with a financial advisor. And I strongly advise that you go ahead and start putting money away in some type of retirement fund so you can plan for the future. It's important. And one of the last things I wanted to share about assets is building business ventures, because it's important that you're able to either sell a business, start a business, build the business up and sell it, or start a business, build it up. And then if something happens to you, whether you die or something happens to you and you can no longer, continue the business, then maybe your children can take over. If you don't have children, maybe you have a trusted partner that can take over and it would still generate income. Building a business venture is important. So whether it's real estate, whether it's a ice cream truck. Man, we had a teacher, he was the vice principal in my high school, and he owned 2 ice cream trucks. Like, it was important for him to have a business during the summertime when school was out, that he was still generating income. And guess what? He wasn't always on the truck selling the ice cream. He would have an employee or 2 employees working on that ice cream truck, but they were generating income and he was able to build wealth. So building a business venture is important, especially now that we're in 2025. If you don't even have an idea, go on ChatGPT, go on Google and type in, how can I start a business with less than $1,000? And I guarantee you're going to find something that's going to draw interest. And I'm telling you, study it, get involved, and get yourself a business venture. That's extremely important. And it's one other pillar that you cannot ignore. And lastly is growth. Growth is the final pillar that you cannot ignore. We're talking about real estate growth. We're talking about your stock portfolio growth, but you cannot stop growing. And other thing about growth is mindset growth. Invest in you. It's one of the greatest things that I've invested in my entire life, is investing in myself. Books that was teaching me how to make money, right? I got a college degree and I have a business mindset because for the last 15 years, I have been studying business. So I have a PhD in business, essentially. I have started startup companies, like startup territories, and built them up to $1 million+ dollars. Building growth is extremely important in having financial wealth. All of these pillars are extremely important, and it leads to the fact that you must have a different mindset. That's why I started this podcast off by saying that you must be willing to do the things today others won't do, so that you can have the things tomorrow that others won't have. That means that you might have to sacrifice today time, money, so you can build it up. So you're not out there going on that vacation, blowing the bag on different things that to try to just keep up with your friends, to have this facade, this look, keeping up with the Joneses. One of the biggest kept secrets that everybody doesn't know is that the Jones, keeping up with the Joneses, they're broke. They don't have any money. They don't have any wealth. So you want to create wealth, you have to understand how to protect it, how to generate it, how to build assets, how to have growth, how to be very intentional in your cash flow. These 5 pillars are going to help you grow. These 5 pillars are going to help you create generational wealth so that you can be successful and you can pass it on to your children and your children's children. It's a biblical principle that we don't always become the borrowers, that we become the lenders, that we become those that create wealth so that our children and their children will be protected. Listen, one of the biggest tragedies that I have to say is the fact that my grandfather didn't leave anything for me. In fact, the only thing he gave me was DNA, because I don't even know his name, let alone did he give me any type of wealth. Even $5,000, $10,000 can do something. One of the things I was sharing with my mom a few months ago, she kept, I got little ones. I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and my mom loves buying them toys. She loves buying them books. She buys them my mother loves my children, and she's just, overcompensating, I think, for what my lifestyle or my my young life was. And so I believe she's probably, overcompensating. And I love my mom, and she's always been there for me financially, mentally, spiritually. My mother always prayed for me. So, shout outs to you, Mom. I love you. But one of the conversations we had a few months ago, I said, "Hey, Mom, I know you want your grandkids to remember you, right? But look, I think they'll remember you more long term if you start putting that $25, $50, $100 and start investing that. Start putting that money away. They're 2 years old. They're 4 years old. Like, don't you think that if you saved $100 here, $200 there, $1,000 there, that it'll compound by the time they're 18, 19 years old, they have $20,000, $30,000 in a fund that their grandmother put away over the course of 18 years? I think they'll really appreciate you and remember you a lot longer than that one toy that you bought them when they were 1 year old, or that outfit that you bought them for Easter or Christmas. They're not going to remember that. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have grandchildren or you have children, the greatest gift that you can give them is something that's going to outlast you and them. And that's financial wealth. That's financial wealth. It's important and it's imperative. Look, I have a lot more that I wanted to share today, but I believe that this is a good point for me to just pivot and end this podcast episode. Look, I got some guests that I want to bring on. We've been having some conflicting schedules. Your boy been busy. I've been out here growing sales. I'm also in the ministry business. So, the Lord has been requiring a lot of my time, my wife's time. We've had conferences, and praise God for all of that. Praise God for all of our supporters. And my wife is she just finished writing 2 books. She has a 52-week devotional called Light in the Chaos. Go to Dr. Charmaine Wilder and please support the wife. She's doing something phenomenal with a 52-week devotional. She also wrote a journal for teens, for youth. And so she's doing some incredible things. She has some courses coming up. So my wife's been grinding, putting in a lot of work. She's the music director of our church. She's a licensed mental health counselor. She's a wonderful mom. She's a wonderful wife. So shout out to you, honey. I know you're listening to this episode, and I want to give you your flowers because I love you and I cannot do life without you and your support and your encouragement and your empowerment. So thank you so much. Shout out to my kids because every single day they inspire me to be the best version of myself. Shout out to King's Accountability for just holding me accountable. The Wake the Game Up calls, man, my guys on the East Coast. I also hop on with the West Coast every now and again. So shout out to y'all. Shout out to my coaches and my mentors and everybody who's been supporting this entire movement. But I believe that I dropped some gems and some nuggets on this episode. So if you think that it benefited you and you can help and share this episode with somebody else, then I strongly suggest that you do that. And I thank you so much for your support. Go support the movement. Go support the book, Desire to Dream. And we definitely want to see you be encouraged, be inspired. And I would love to see you live in the best version of yourself. Financial wealth. It's important and it's imperative that we do the things that I shared here today. You ain't got to do all of them, but pick something, work on one thing, and watch it compound over time, and you'll see that you're on your way to creating generational wealth. It's your boy, Lil Wilder. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Desire to Dream podcast. Again, like and share with your friends. I'll see you on the next episode. Peace and God bless.